everybody, and thank you, Chris. It's funny how Chris and I came to know each other. It was through a connection with R.A. Lewis. I was working about a year and a half or so ago in the economic development space here in Cleveland. I was working with the Greater Cleveland Partnership, working with small businesses, primarily in the either emerging tech or high growth industries, talking to them about what they needed to grow. I don't have a typical economic development background, which is one of the reasons why they had asked me to come on board. But in any case, I live in the west side of Cleveland and Rocky River. I'm glad to see some Northeast Ohio representation on the call today. I got snow too, and I can't promise that a kid won't scream or a dog won't bark in the background either. So forgive me if that happens as well. But I try to get them outside into the snow. So, but thanks again. So I've got a couple slides. This is super informal. If you've got any questions or comments or want to chat, I just do so. We're not going to solve all the world's problems in going to market, in a 15 or 20 minute call. So I guess, if I would say anything is like, what I would encourage everybody to do, whatever your role is. And I think, Vince, you mentioned you have your own company, and Steve and Richie, you have roles in the company which obviously are, focus on, generating growth. Is, just be thinking about revenue. Some of the startup work that I've done, and I can kind of get into this. Is it okay if I share my screen now, Chris? Okay. Let's see if it works when I do this. Can you see anything or no?
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
All right, here we go. This is technology. This is where we go, right? So it's highlighted. Open system preferences, security. Okay. Sorry about this, guys.
That's okay.
It's the world now.
Oh, well, the thing is, I don't do Zoom calls on this laptop, and so we should be okay now. Let me try it again. There we go.
Yep. All good.
Hey, I did it. I'm the least. What's funny about that, I told Chris this before, I'm the least technical person you will ever speak to. Anyhow, it's perfect. But in any case, it's just really a simple question. Oops, let me go back here if I may. Where's the revenue coming from? So a couple of the companies I've worked with, depending on where they're at in their stages, we're talking about raising money. And we got to get our tech right, and we got to work on our product roadmap and everything. But the sales and the revenue piece is always kind of an afterthought. So that's a big question. Where's your money coming from? So kind of getting into that, just a little bit about me. I won't go through all this, but I had worked in business development sales capacity in the contact center space for quite some time. About 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I had this if not now, when moment. Like I wanted to go do something on my own, and I felt like I had this, I don't know if it's this ability necessarily, but this passion about, trying to help, companies grow. And I think one thing about Northeast Ohio, and maybe, some of the folks on the call can attest to this, we're not very good at telling a story about what we do in the region. So I think that we need to be better storytellers about what we do. And I think that we need to be cheerleaders, for what we do, and cheerleaders for the region. And so in any case, I quit my job, didn't have another job, said I wanted to work with some small companies, and got a chance to work with Zagster, which is a bike share startup out of Boston, Massachusetts. They had asked me if I'd kind of run the operations general manager role here in Ohio and Michigan. So I worked on the bike share program that some of you in Cleveland would be familiar with. That is now, it was UH Bikes. It's not UH now, but it was the first bike share program that we had here in Cleveland. After that, I left and had an opportunity to go to work with an AI company out of Ann Arbor called Clink. This company that started in 2015. They did a Series B raise, I think, of like $3.5 million or $6 million. And then last year, did a second raise of $52 million, which was the largest raise of its kind at the time. And I went back. So I kind of wedged in between the first time and the second time my work at the Greater Cleveland Partnership, which I came to know Chris and the OhioX team. But in any case, I'm running I'm head of sales operations there today, in addition to the work I do through my agency. And, that work kind of entails, facing internal customers like our CX and product and marketing teams, and as well as, our external customers as well too. So, but anyhow, that's kind of the path that I landed on. Oops, sorry. A little too fast. So these are some of the companies that I've worked with and sold to. Ohio State has a bike share program now too, and I was involved in helping deliver that to them. And I've worked with AT&T and Goldman Sachs and some others as well. So, and I share this with you only because of the fact that I was asked to be a mentor a couple of years ago, and I was like, I don't really know what my secret would be to being a mentor. Let me go to my next slide here, because I don't know how you become a mentor. Do you go to school to be a mentor or something to that effect? And they're like, hey, your life experiences, is what will do that. And we all have different experiences. And I guess I share that with you just from a revenue perspective. None of us, we don't necessarily grow up thinking like, hey, I'm going to go into sales, or, I'm going to help generate revenue for my company. But we each have a unique experience that we should, and we can bring to that. And I would encourage you to kind of think about like what those things are, for you personally and professionally. So anyways, kind of getting to like what I want to cover over the next 10 or 15 minutes. Again, start thinking about revenue early. I think sometimes it's the last thing, especially with a company that is small. If you're working with a group of founders, oftentimes the founders aren't, somebody not part of the founding team that's been accustomed to driving revenue. Maybe they're more technical in nature. And then, after they've developed product and think they know, where they want to go to market, they say, hey, we should do some sales and figure out how we're going to get our revenue. And so I would just say, let's think about that early. And then, secondly, make sure when you start going to market, have sales have a seat at the table. They generally are, but oftentimes it's more of from an execution perspective, like, hey, we've decided what we're going to do. So now, sales go out and make that happen. So I'm really quick on the draw here with my clicker, but really only one thing matters when you're talking to your customers and your prospects, and it's either making money or saving money. So, we can have a lot of cool technology. Conversational AI is pretty slick. But the thing is, if you're not able to kind of articulate to the prospect like how you're going to make or save money, we're really just kind of spinning our wheels here. I'm not sure, just with the group here, I know we have tech and tech enabled companies. If you've solved that problem yet, or sometimes you get caught up in the echo chamber of just what it is we do, and how are we helping companies do that? But it's super important for us to to be thinking about. Kind of on a, if you think about it this way, and again, if you have any questions or if I'm going too fast, let me know. I feel like I speak quickly sometimes. From a tech perspective, the buyer, is usually hearing from someone, right, that they don't know, from a company they've never heard of. Selling a solution, that they don't even really understand, to solve a problem that you're telling them about that they don't even know that they really have, and that's tough. So on an individual level, I think as somebody who's responsible for helping drive revenue in the company, we have to think like, how do we get these people to know us? So there's that know, like, trust path, right? And we have to get people to know us and like us and trust us. And then from a company perspective, how do we get them to know our company? How do we get them to know about our solutions and they trust our solutions? And then, lastly, trust that solution will actually solve a real problem that they have. It's a lot to do. So I just, I talk about trying to keep things simple, when we're, trying to go do that. So I guess 3 things that I talk about here. I sat on a call several weeks ago with some folks from Citigroup, and I think BMO, which is it's a big bank, and there was one, it may have been Goldman Sachs, actually, was on the call as well. But we were talking about like what we need to do, or what company needs to do in order to work with them. And they really said it really comes down to three things, and it's pretty easy. Is, hey, make it easy for us to get our hand on the technology, whatever that is. Show them that will enable them to go faster in whatever it is they're trying to do, so for whatever problem it is they're trying to solve, and position it that way. And then the last piece is, have a track record of delivering. And, that honestly sometimes is the hardest piece, especially if you're just starting out, because, your tech is not out in the market. So you're like, how do I show a track record when I don't have it in the market? And so, one thing to think about is, we don't have the perfect product or the perfect solution all the time, but get it out quickly, get feedback on it, and then continue to iterate on that, so you can start to show, some history there. Any questions or thoughts or comments? I'm not accustomed to talking for 20 minutes straight either. If I was actually doing my job and I was talking for 20 minutes, they'd be like, why are you here? Because it's supposed to be interactive. So feel free to ask any questions or interrupt me if you like. So, from a go-to-market perspective, these are just basics. I can come up with other diagrams and charts that are a lot more graphic and detailed and whatnot. But you're talking about going to market. You have your product group, and you have your head of product and your engineers and the CX and maybe some others. Marketing, is going to cover any of the ABM campaigns, that are being conducted to your accounts, your target accounts. Webinars, events, things that you want to get involved in. And then sales, and then those are the direct sales, partnerships, and then the resources that you're kind of bringing to bear on that with SDRs and BDRs. I had a situation a few weeks ago. I was hiring somebody. We were looking to hire a new salesperson, and we're really focused, Clink, and there's a lot of discussion in the industry about culture and diversity and inclusion. And, I think one of the things that, we as a company, and I'm wearing my Clink hat right now when I talk about this, but I think one thing that we have a responsibility as a company to do is to not only create a great culture for those people that are in-house, but also those people that we're looking to bring in-house, right? So, when we're looking to bring in a new sales resource, they're going to have some questions. And I think that these questions that they're going to have are great questions for us to be thinking about as a company, or as a tech company, or as a tech provider, and needing to be able to answer those questions. So, like specifically, what is the product? Can you explain, articulate that product clearly? I've heard described two ways. Somebody said, explain it to me like you're talking to my grandma. I say, explain it to me like you're talking to my 7 or 8-year-old. But, can we clearly articulate that product? Do we understand what the sales cycle is for those products? And can we articulate those things? And are we thinking about those things as we're going through our planning? Average contract value, how do we support it? Meaning, like, are we generating revenue on the back end, from that? And then, also, giving some examples of where that's happened before. So be able to talk about examples of hey, we're able to take this particular product or service to market. We were able to do our due diligence on the front end, and in 9 months we were able to deliver a solution that that was production grade and ready to go. Those are the things that again, from a go-to-market perspective, we should be thinking about how do we get there, and if we don't, and if we can't answer those questions, that could be a problem. So. Again, a little quick on the draw there. So just kind of getting things in order, from a revenue perspective and go to market, is the technology and getting the technology stack straight. I've seen situations where you come into a company and they've got great tech, the CRM's in place, the sales enablement tools are in place, and it all works great. Then in other cases, you'll have a situation where you have those pieces, parts put together. But unfortunately, the person that put that tech stack together didn't really understand sales or the sales process. And some of those things don't work really well. It's super important to do that. And again, kind of keeping an eye on like the sales process in general. Aligning sales resources. Again, this is all, it may seem like it's some back office work, but it's really how can we execute on the revenue side by streamlining and understanding the process. So, aligning SDRs and BDRs, aligning AEs, do we need sales engineers to be part of the conversation? At what point in the sales stage do we need them to be involved? And then lastly, I think I'm kind of talking to some of that right now, is the sales process. So, understanding what does that look like? We do introductory calls, we do demos, we, uncover use cases, we do business and deal and tech reviews, and then we try to get paper, to actually sell something. So it's really important to understand that process on the front end, and also too, I guess on the back end, from the perspective that understanding what it takes to do all that, we need to be able to operationalize that so we can productize that and then, eventually monetize it, for our customers. Again, these are all points where I think oftentimes from a technology perspective, because we have, I don't want to say from a technology perspective, but because we haven't taken the time to document those processes, we can't articulate to the customer why there's value. And again, those are potentially lost revenue opportunities. From a revenue perspective, there's the direct selling, and the direct selling, can boil down to an enterprise level. You're selling to the top 10 banks in the country, or more of a transactional, not so enterprise level, where it's more transactional in nature. Where an inside sales, support team may be able to sell that. Maybe it's an average, annual contract of 15 or 20 grand, and that's something they can sell over the phone. And then there's the indirect selling. There's the referral, reseller, and embedded into other tech stacks. And there's been some interesting papers I've read lately in regards to how important that is to help people go faster. To help companies like our companies, as tech companies, go faster. And I guess I would say this as well, and I'm getting ready to wrap up here in a minute or two, but it's really important to understand that the indirect selling, the partnership selling is not passive. Some things, and I think I was talking to Chris when we discussed this earlier, I could just get on this call and you all could probably do the same and just talk for 20 minutes about what you've seen go right and go wrong, with different companies, and it would be super interesting. And I think that one of the places where I've seen tech companies fail is that we sometimes go out and try to get referral or reseller agreements, and we think we've got an agreement in place, we got paper in place, we're going to get revenue from that, not understanding that there's a lot of processes that go into making that effective, from co-branding, co-marketing material, providing sales support and technical support. So anyhow, there's a lot that goes into that, and there's companies that do nothing but that, which I think is kind of fascinating. Random thoughts, because I wasn't sure if I was going to talk too fast and blow through this too quickly. But just some things I've seen, things that are interesting to me. I don't know if you guys do a lot of proof of concepts. We used to do a ton of them. I know at Clink, we don't do very many of them anymore. There's a lot of studies out there that proof of concepts are like a wasteland. Though big companies like to do them, with small tech companies all the time. But oftentimes they don't go anywhere. But if you do find out that you've got to get into a POC with somebody, make sure there's executive visibility to it. I talked a little bit about the echo chamber. Try to get out of the office a little bit, talk to some other folks, even folks that aren't doing exactly what it is you do. It's interesting to hear what other people are doing. Don't do science projects. That's another pet peeve of mine. I feel like sometimes when you have really amazing tech, you want to go out and just show it can do everything and anything, and it's great to do that, but it's not repeatable, it's not scalable, and it's hard to get a production grade solution when you're doing that. Eventually your stuff will become a commodity. So sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're in the middle of the pack, and sometimes you're chasing. It's really important to have a great relationship with marketing, because I know good marketing, a great marketing campaign and a good story and a good message with average tech will beat good tech in the market, if you let it. And then, I guess I would say, as we're trying to get to revenue, and it's one thing that I'm constantly trying to help my clients do, and obviously helping Clink do now, is we want to think big but start small, and then just continue to talk about what's possible, with them, and then lastly, we're all responsible, for selling, whether it's the person at the front door or whether it's the engineers on the back end, but we're all part of it, and I think that's not a weight they should have to carry. It's something that they should all be really happy about. So anyhow, I think that is the end of my presentation. I had a little mission statement there, talking about things that are important to Sun and what we do. But anyhow, that's it, Chris. I've effectively filled up about 21 minutes of it. So.
Well, thank you, Dana. And if you can maybe go back a couple slides to your the thoughts, yeah, right there,
Yeah.
random thoughts. So everyone responsible for selling, and that's something that we see a lot of Ohio. I mean, there's just such a range, especially for tech companies, that it could be a 2-person startup and the founders are the only people there, and maybe one's the coder developer, the other one is the business side. And so where everyone is responsible for selling, that's literally if they're not selling, then it's a problem.
Right.
But then you get to where you're at with your company, your Ann Arbor based company, where you do have business development folks, you have a sales team. In that evolution, at what point have you seen there be success where the founder, who's probably the top salesperson, has to then start to maybe hire people as they focus on other things? And what are some of those lessons that you've seen with companies?
That is an awesome question, and it's actually it's actually in my notes here to talk about that, because the founder cannot be responsible for driving all the revenue. I mean, there's a time and a place. I mean, that's the way it has to be early on. But the founder's also out, maybe trying to raise money or trying to, make their tech awesome or whatever it is, that, got them to be a founder in the first place, right? They didn't become a founder to be a salesperson. So it's there's a couple, I don't think there's one answer, Chris, but what I would say is, as you're looking at your addressable market, so you're looking at, the addressable market and then the target accounts within that. So I'll just use banking, for example. If I want to say, hey, there are top 50 banks in the country by assets, the top 10 or 15, I should have my founder involved in those deals, right? The next tier down, that middle market, whatever you want to call it, not necessarily transactional in nature, but that next tier, it's pretty important to be able to skill somebody up to be able to do that. And I had a call with a recruiter. We have a recruiter out in New York that does a lot for Clink, and we were bringing on some AE talent, and we were just talking. He was talking about decathletes, and he goes, decathletes, when I'm looking at AEs, never work, because they're decathletes. They're really good at a lot of stuff, but they're not necessarily great at selling. But the challenge with that is we all have to be good at, like, when you join a company, you have to be good at a lot of different things, because you're and you're probably a hand raiser. You want to join, you want to help with marketing, or you want to help CX, or you want to help do whatever it is you need to do. But at some point in time, it's critical that you have to have somebody focused on driving revenue, and there's financials that go into that. So if you're bringing somebody on and giving them equity, or you're most of the time, you can't afford to go out and pay for the talent that you really need. You're not going to go spend 150 grand as a startup for a high-end salesperson, because you probably don't have the money to do that. So it's a great question. For me, I think it's about, divide and conquer. So understanding like who your market is, who your target accounts are at the top of the funnel. And then if you've got a founder that's really charismatic or really passionate or really good at telling the story, you'd rather them being out, doing webinars or on stage someplace. You don't want them sitting in sales calls. And quite frankly, since this is a small audience, most of the founders are horrible salespeople also, by the way, because they're there to talk about their stuff. And I think they're there to get people excited about their stuff, but actually driving something to close is a very different skill set. And most of them do not have it. I'd actually ask, it was a question I was going to ask. You all were kind enough to share a little bit about yourselves, but most founding groups or early leadership teams don't have somebody whose skill set is selling or driving revenue. They're really good. If you look at 4 founders, they probably, from a tech company, they're probably all really good. They're super technical and super smart about that. They may not have that skill set. So anyhow, I'm sorry, I probably didn't answer your question, Chris, but it's an awesome question. And it's something that, for me, I think the founder, has other things. Like it's super important to be able to engage them, but again, it's kind of the top of the funnel.
No, that was helpful. And Vince, Steve, or Richie and others hop in. But if I could just piggyback off of one other point that you had just made, which I think is very true, and I've seen it firsthand a lot and experienced it myself, of the selling the story and then closing. As you said, those are very different things.
Right.
So for maybe those founder types that can get the excitement, sell what the message is, what are those things that can help maybe those types, what should they be thinking about as they're looking to close deals and actually see things through execution, as opposed to giving a million hype talks a week?
Right. It comes, you have to trust somebody, right? I think that if I could just tell a founder what to do, then I think, and it's not just me. If somebody who had experience of selling could just tell somebody what to do, then the experience of selling wouldn't be as important, right? I think what it's important is that I think self-awareness. So, I think I went to, I'll just go here really quick and then I'll come back here in case you want me to. Self-aware. This is my number 2 point. So you got to be self-aware, right? Self-awareness is super important. I think a founder needs to be self-aware that they're really good at what they're really good at, but I have to find somebody to trust to drive the process to closure. I don't want to say it's not possible, but there's only so many hours in the day, and I don't know. And there are some people that are good at everything, and God bless them. But I think that at the point in time they should be thinking about how do I get this stuff in as many people's hands as possible, and I know I can't do it. So who can I trust to do that? And there's a lot of organizations and communities and things that you can go out and get involved in, to meet people and find people. Or you go pay a recruiter, 30% of a salary, or whatever. But anyhow.
Yeah, great question, great question, Chris. And just to piggyback on that, Dana, everything you've said has been, described at least me to a T. And I'm sure, like you said, most founders probably describes them to a T. So my question is, and my big challenge right now is, how to kind of get over that hump and get to that next level. So we're entirely bootstrapped. I mentioned the business is about 50% kind of project work and 50% of trying to launch this product. So the project work really has bootstrapped the whole company. There's no funding or anything like that. And my challenge is, getting to that next point of, developing the sales team, developing the, really getting customers on board, the enterprise accounts, that kind of thing. And, right now I'm just wearing all the hats as the founder, and will fully self-admit that I'm not, the best at all of that, but it's the necessary, starting point, as you said. So, what do you, normally from what you've seen with early stage companies, what is the point, how do you kind of tackle that, getting over that hump of, is it the funding comes before the sales team comes before the funding, that chicken and egg type thing?
Yeah, what I would do, and it kind of goes back to one of the slides, like
Yeah.
you could articulate, let's pretend you're hiring someone.
Yeah.
If you can articulate the product, the service, the solution, what you've seen, or even what you, and early on, you might not, listen, the sales process is not, cookie cutter, so it's going to be different for everybody, right? But you can say in your mind, and I think this is really important too. Sometimes when we're selling, and I'm guilty of all, by the way, I'm not a tech company. I'm guilty of everything that I've talked about today also. So it's through the scars that I have, and I still have to come back to this, right? I have to come back to remember, oh, you can't do that, or, so I get that. But some of it is saying, hey, listen, here's my product, here's my solution, here's how I want to take it to market. I'm going to just, this is the process. Now that process of how I'm going to do that may change, but you're going to have to knock me off of what I want that process to be. So, I mean, you have an idea in your mind that, hey, if I found a client that had budget and was ready to do something, and I know I can solve the problem, I know in 6 months, I could deliver, I could get them production grade, whatever it is that we're doing. I think that you have to, so you go back to being able to articulate that. And I think that at the point in time that you can articulate that, then you can maybe start to think about what another resource would look like. So whether it's a resource, I know, one of the companies I was mentoring, their Jumpstart, about a year or so ago, they were looking at bringing on somebody, I don't know, they were calling a revenue officer or whatever, titles are, you call yourself whatever you want to, but the person was going to be responsible for driving sales, and they were going to make her part of the founding team because they didn't have the money to invest, right? I know that's a decision everybody has to make as to how to do that. But I think that you have to, at some point, regardless whether you're ready to do it or not, you've got to be able to articulate what this is. This is what it is. It should take 6 months to do it. It's going to, we're going to make this much. They're going to renew. Once I know if they renew, that second year, we're going to make, we're going to make it. So I'd really try to start there. Again, I know it's a longer exercise, but I would really try to start there because, I don't know, for me, I told you I was interviewing somebody, and again, it's not exactly what you were asking about, but I was interviewing somebody. She lived in Texas. She was a single mom. She was thinking about leaving her job, and I'm like, man, I've got a responsibility to be able to articulate to this person what it is I'm asking her to come on board. I better be able to articulate that to somebody. And that really made it, and it helped me even further boil down on, like, I need to be able to do that as a company, like as a startup or as a tech company or whatever. So anyhow, I hope that answered your question at least a little bit. And I'm happy if you want to send me a note afterwards. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it more too. So
yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Any other questions or thoughts for Dana?
I was going to say, I know we're a manufacturing company and all this, but one of the companies we acquired last year has a small software system they developed, and we're in a sense trying to figure out how we can take our established manufacturing company and have this small tech, almost startup in the middle of us. So that's what I was here to look at. So it's interesting because, yeah, sales hasn't been on our mind yet in any of it. I mean, they have the platform there, there was a base of sales going through it, but Yeah, I probably should focus more on that.
I have an interesting question to ask you. Is that you said it's within the organization? Is it kind of walled off from the rest of the organization, or is there a lot of overlap in who's working on what?
I walled off the developers from like the production side. So it was a platform to sell more of our labels, right? So think of like a grocery store scale label that, prints out like, you want a pound of turkey kind of
Right.
stuff. A new version of that. But the point was get our system in that so then they can buy our labels. So the owner, the founder who created the system and all this, he was pretty much like, yeah, I just do this so I can get the labels. But what we recognized is he was fully underselling that system, and we can probably make more on that system than we can ever make the commodity that is labels now.
Right.
So I walled off the developers from being under the production management and all that. And so they're all reporting to me under IT, but it's kind of like this startup I have no idea what to do with.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, the reason why, and thank you for answering, it's interesting because sometimes when these companies come into established companies, it's really important to have some differentiation, because sometimes it can kind of get swallowed up by whatever else is already going on, especially if you're looking to do something else differently with it. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about that, but like just thinking about like what kind of problems you said it's underutilized. Like what kind of problems could that be solving elsewhere? What are the problems? And then is there a dollar figure? There was a really good report I just read earlier today. It was Google Cloud talking about how the cloud and their contact center is solving all these problems. And they did a really good job of like articulating not just like hey, we can, save money because it's not on-prem, but talking about labor costs and training costs and retention costs. For it was pretty fascinating. So anyhow, thank you.
No, thank you.
Oh, and by the way, Olive, which is a great story, we've delivered some of our AI to Olive before. We've worked a little bit with them as well. So that Drive Capital is one of our investors at Clink also.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I talked to the team at Drive probably once a week or so. But yeah, Olive that's cool. That was awesome. 225 million, right? I think.
Yeah, and 1.5 valuation, I believe now, which is the third. Cover My Meds was one. They were acquired. Root 2, that just happened a few weeks ago. IPO'd on the NASDAQ, and then, yeah, now Olive.
Yeah, Drive Capital, man.
Yeah.
Making it happen.
It's a good thesis.
Right in the Midwest.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is fantastic. And if there's any other thoughts or questions, feel free to hop in. But thank you so much, Dana, for sharing your work. And if you maybe want to flip over to your contact slide, if anyone wants to connect, or I know you're all on LinkedIn probably, but thanks for attending. And Vince and Steve, it was a pleasure to meet you both. And Richie, thanks for attending. And Dana, thanks for putting this together. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate your time. I know you guys are all eager to watch the Steelers-Ravens game now that started.
I forgot that was on today. So thanks for the reminder.
All right.
Love Wednesday afternoon football. So
nothing like it. So
yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks so much.
Guys, bye-bye.
Thank you.